Should I be staying on my own?
Yeah.
Should I go back? Should I find an employer? Should I find a partner? Should I outsource? What do you
Yeah. A lot of people say the same thing, and I tend to agree. Money will only get you so far in terms of salary or what you're getting paid. And at some point, and this goes for, I would probably have to say 80%, maybe even higher, 90% of people I know.
Yeah.
There comes a time where it's okay, I'm getting paid X amount. I might get paid an extra 10,000 next year or 20,000. And that might be able to make me buy a new car or do have some home renovations or whatever. But at the same time, it doesn't improve your work life any. You still might be, oh, okay, I'm going into work. This is not what I want to do. It doesn't improve that situation. And usually, if you are bestowed a sizable pay increase, it usually comes with additional work. So my advice would be to find your passion first, find what you genuinely love to do.
Welcome to Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment podcast, where we tackle all sorts of great topics in the areas of recruitment, job searching, mindset, technology, marketing, culture, and lots more. It's amazing what you'll pick up. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back, everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment podcast. It's Friday afternoon, episode 61, and I have the fantastic Dexter Eugenio in the house. How you doing, Dex?
Hey, Darren. Good, mate. How are you?
Very, very well. Dexter has a lot of great insight to share, and the topic for today is passion over profit, employee over employer.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot what I sent you.
I like this pretty cool.
We might have to talk serious now, hey.
Absolutely. But for everyone out there, Dexter is an oxymoron, a technical creative that started in marketing, stumbled into corporate IT, fell into small business IT support, bought a computer shop, built up a loyal client base, ran it for over 15 years and loved it. Surprisingly, Dexter has just made the change back to being an employee, and he couldn't be happier. A top-tier MSP led by a founder that has vision and isn't afraid to challenge the norms is Dexter's new home, and in turn, it's reignited his creative engine. So it's back now to using the right side of his brain, and today he's here to talk all about it. And he's reminded me to tell you that the clients he has have all happily moved over as well. And this time he's going to help them grow in other ways, not just IT. So Dexter, welcome to the show, man.
Wow. Thank you very much for that, Darren. You've brought a tear to my eye, honestly. And it's not because of the incense that's burning in the background, but still.
It's your bio. Very, very well. But tell us a bit more about you. Give everybody, the audience, a little bit more of an insight into your backstory. Let's elaborate.
Okay. Yeah. Around when high school ended, I was a bit lost. I'm Asian, Filipino, and didn't know what I wanted to do after year 12. And I thought accounting was the thing because Asian. So I got into a TAFE course starting accounting, and I found that I hated it like quite a lot. I was good at numbers, but wasn't good at applying numbers to dollars. And I tried to push on with the course, but as part of that accounting course was a section on marketing.
Yeah.
And that's what I really enjoyed. I think I got about 6 months into that accounting course and dropped pretty much every other subject instead of marketing, and just continued doing just the marketing subject. Quickly decided that the school wasn't for me. With the limited marketing knowledge I had, decided to try and get a job in marketing. And I got one, strangely enough. Started a job in marketing, and they quickly found out that I had a bit of computer smarts. Now, I rack my brain occasionally trying to figure out where the computing smarts came from, whether it was like something that sort of came to me, or I had computers in the past, or it could have been a family member. I'm not really sure. They've always been with me throughout.
Nice.
And so when I got my marketing job and they found out I was pretty good at computers, then I was the marketing / computer guy. And as the company that I was working for grew bigger, a lot of my marketing work ended up being less, and a lot of my computing work ended up being more. And around that time, it was when Microsoft was heavily pushing their MCSE program. So if you had those 4 letters after your name, you could command a pretty decent salary. The exams were pretty intense. Yeah, but that was the flavor. So I made the decision to do a course. It was with a company, they're called Dimension Data. I can't remember what they were called back in the day, but it was basically a boxed course where it was an MCP, which was Microsoft's kind of base certification program, and it was A plus. And it was a program that allowed you to do those sort of both of those certifications, and then they would help you find a job. This was around the IT skills shortage time, so I thought I'd hop on that bandwagon. So I did that, enjoyed it. It was fun. It was more getting to the technical side of things, and I got placed in with Toll Transport. Funnily enough,
cool.
back when I first started, had less than 1,000 employees, and at last count, from what I can remember, maybe 10,000 now. I'm not sure. They just grew exponentially. So that was my first job in IT, corporate level. I was actually at the data center, so to speak, basically doing just help desk stuff. So I did that for many, many years, from help desk to systems admin, pretty much the progression normally. Then I got cold feet and decided to test the market out, and then found myself with they weren't called MSPs back in the day. Just basically integration. Yes, that's them.
And outsourced IT providers.
Outsourced, exactly. So I did that, and I found I enjoyed that a lot more than corporate enterprise IT. Enterprise IT, when the time that I left, they'd introduced things like change management and all of this sort of stuff. That meant that if you wanted to even look at a server, you had to fill out all these forms, and you had to have all these systems and processes that had to be in place before you could even do anything. So it made IT like a very big, slow turning ship. And it wasn't as fun. I basically stayed there, especially towards the end, like the last couple of years. It's because I had a really good bunch of friends that worked there. So going from that environment to basically me, there was, I think I was the only technician. The company was like maybe 3 deep. And me being the sole IT contact for a bunch of these small businesses, I found that a lot of fun. Dealing with the customers and having a lot more scope around the technology in general. So it wasn't just me answering a phone and fixing problems with Outlook or a computer. It was everything from hardware to software to internet to phones to like mobiles, like the whole box and dice. And during that time as well, I think it started me improving my sort of customer relationship skills, talking to different customers at different levels. I'd started that with the enterprise sort of IT section, but it was mainly just people calling me up saying, hey, I've got a problem with my mouse or my keyboard. So I never really got to fully develop it there, but starting to look after smaller businesses, it grew quite quickly.
Right. Yeah.
So from there, I think I stayed there maybe 4 or 5 years, and there was an opportunity to buy a computer shop, which was up the street. And again, it's one of those things where I can't, it was never a passion of mine to own a computer shop. And I didn't even want to be a business owner.
But it was close to home. You thought, what the hell?
It was, yeah, it was close to home. And look, it was actually a kind of cool shop at the time. And look, it still is. And so the numbers worked, and I made the plunge and bought the shop. And about 6 months into it, like the GFC hit. So like, best decision ever. I spent all this money, and it was making a pretty good profit at the time. And the profit on parts just basically went away with GFC. No one was buying. All the parts were expensive, and it was a pretty hard time.
Was that 2008, I think, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah, because it was literally like a night and day switch. I would have orders that were coming in the morning, fulfilling them in the afternoon. It was quite a regular thing. I was enjoying it because at the same time, I was still doing a lot of IT support for some of these businesses. Mm-hmm. If anybody that does IT is listening out there, customers follow the technician. That's how it works. If you're a great technician and you're friendly and you know what you're talking about, it doesn't matter who owns the company.
Just like a hairdresser. We follow a hairdresser.
Yes.
I don't follow one anymore, but
you should sack your hairdresser. So when I bought the shop, I introduced a certain level of support. So the shop itself, when I had bought it, it was called Mega PC, by the way, which is it's a horrible name, but I bought it as is and kept it, and it's still like my main email address now. I hated the name, but anyway, I expanded it from just being parts and hardware to also including a bit more support. There was some very basic support, but that was when people used to bring in their boxes and they'd drop them off. So I introduced home support, and then there were still some businesses that were chasing me up, so I would service them too whenever they needed it. So that was a blessing in disguise, because when the GFC hit and no one was buying anything, at least I could still do the support thing on the side. And shortly after that, when the GFC eventually died down and the hardware sales were like tanking year on year, I just decided to close it up and just keep Mega PC running as basically just like my own IT support company.
An MSP, really?
Yeah, one man MSP.
MSP.
Funnily enough, I'll just circle back. So the company that I was working for before I bought the shop, they were probably one of the first companies to buy licenses with Kaseya, who were probably, I would think that they were probably one of the first MSPs in the country, or at least to try and introduce that concept. Unfortunately, the purchase led to, I think, the ultimate demise of the company, because it was a hard sell. You've got companies that are paying break fix. If they don't have a problem for 2 or 3 months, they don't pay anything in their IT. And we're trying to introduce almost a subscription program back in the day to say, look, you're just going to have to keep paying us this amount each month, regardless of if there's no problems or not. That was probably 10 years ago. So even now, even to this day, selling MSP services is difficult, let alone 10 years ago. So getting back to it, pretty much running on my own now and just looking after small businesses. Most of the clients ended up just coming back to me, and I continued doing that for pretty much close to 16 years. In and amongst that time, I tried to start a social media company in between, which kind of worked, but the amount of work that was involved was so difficult. I enjoy typing. I think for me, trying to find my muse in that scenario is very easy for me, and I enjoy it a lot. It sounded like a good idea at the time.
I hate typing. I
love it.
Oh
my God. I love typing. Writing for me is just the best fun. And so doing that was a good idea until I had to do it for topics that I didn't enjoy, or I had to do it in a particular way that it wasn't quite natural to me. And I realized way back in the day that like social media is like a ton of work. So I gave that up, but I was still doing obviously the IT as the main gig. I also introduced a component to Mega PC that focused specifically on dentists, which was a market back in the day that was like had zero competition. Actually, there was one person there that was charging an exorbitant amount of money, and another person and I thought that, hey, we could go in there and shake things up a bit. We tried to. We made a bit of a noise, but my partner at the time, not my partner, but the business partner for this particular adventure, couldn't quite commit. Kids and all of that sort of stuff. So that sort of went by the wayside. And also started a VR company, which is strangely still going now. I have my developers, I think, are about to take over. And I enjoyed the technology. It was a hard thing to sell. It probably gave me my marketing chops back in terms of me trying to sell something to people that didn't know what it was, had no budget for it. And aside from the tech, which is still fun, but what I enjoyed the most was really, and it sounds strange, cold emailing people and trying to weasel my way into companies and have a chat to them, because the tech is so good that once I get a meeting and I can put a headset on them, it's a different story. So that's still going. I think it's getting, the ownership is changing in the next couple of weeks. So it's pretty much now just back to IT. And with everything going on, I'm getting a bit older, and my clients, they're still growing, and it's only just been me. I've tried partnerships in the past. I've tried employees, and I wasn't in capacity, but I didn't feel like I needed to try and do that again. I'd done it once. I didn't want to waste 6 months trying to find the next person. And I'm thinking, like, what can I do? Again, it was just me. So I look after 30 to 40 companies. If you count the other ones that sort of reach out every so often, it could be closer to 50. And I have basically all of the keys to their IT kingdom. And it's not a nice thought if you think about it. If something bad would have happened to me, and I'm touching all the wood now, it'd be very difficult for them to operate. They're not going to go under by any means, but it's not a nice thing to think about. So I had to think of, for them, obviously initially, technically it was okay, but having to keep up with what's happening with Microsoft and all of the different changes, and it was starting to get a bit much. Thankfully, up until that point, I basically self-taught myself everything, and everything was fine. Like I wasn't doing anything wrong, and everything worked, and everything was all good. But it was starting to get to that next level of technicality where I was like, I could spend some time and learn this, but at what point will my clients actually need it? It might not be 6 months, it might not be at all. So I was in this sort of weird quandary of what I wanted to do. And at the same time, the problem with how I operate, because I operated entirely on break fix. I wasn't an MSP by any means. So if things were good in terms of all of my clients, which as a person in my position is a good thing because you know that their systems are going well. Financially, it's a bad thing because I'm not earning money. You have that combined with the cost of living, combined with no one spending, and this is just like throughout the world, and having to meet obviously commitments. I'm like, I need to do more work. And up until that point, my marketing efforts have been quite minimal. I didn't need to, right? There was always regular work coming in, and I was always under that weird position of if I go out there and get as much work as I can, I don't have the capacity to do it because it's just me.
Just you, yeah.
Yes, I had to do that eventually, obviously, in terms of things were going up, my mortgage was going up, my kids are going to high school, yada. I started to get more money and I did more work. I worked the database, things were happening. And then like a lot of the money that I would to bring into the company, I just have to pay in tax. And I was getting so jacked off with that. It was like time and time again. I'm like, what? This is like my best year ever. And then I'm like, all of it's in tax. And that's just how it is as a small business owner. And I think on top of that, I think what was the straw that kind of broke the camel's back was a lot of the decisions that the government made. Now, mind you, I'm not a political person by any means.
Yep.
I don't know which side's which, and I don't even know the names of politicians. But around that time, I think there was the failed Commonwealth Games bid, I think it was, from Dan Andrews, which cost the state X amount of, I think it was like $500 million. And then there was that yes vote thing they tried to pass that. And again, that was more money. And it was the first time ever that the government spend really affected me, only because I was paying all this extra tax. And realistically, the amount of tax that I gave the government was probably 0.0000% of the overall figure. I almost felt it personal. That it was like, hey, that was my dollars that paid for that Commonwealth Games.
Yep.
And you guys just took it away. I think that was the straw. And then I started looking at jobs, seeing if I could supplement with a part-time job. Fortunately or unfortunately, in this instance, I couldn't just leave my clients. I looked after them for 15 plus years, and some of them were actually close to 20 years. So it would be wrong for me to just go, see you guys, that's it, done. I had to think of a creative way to try and keep them on board, but at the same time, try to get my way into a company. I applied for different jobs. I tried some part-time roles and applied for those. And I wouldn't say I wasn't getting much success. It was just basically just sending stuff out. It wasn't until I actually sent an application to you and you reached out. We had a great chat and you put me forward to a couple of candidates. The first one was obviously a very good candidate as well, client, whichever you want to call it. But they were a good company, probably a little on the big side for me to insert myself in there. And that was probably one of the best decisions. Like, firstly, it gave me the confidence to interview again. It's different. This sort of stuff is different. Meeting with new clients is different. Meeting with current clients, it's different. But when you have to actually do an interview, it's a very different energy that you have to sit down and try and exude.
It's me, and you have to prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I was nervous, obviously. And even though the interview went well, didn't go the way that I'd hoped for, which again, in hindsight now, was the best decision because you then put me onto another company, All IT Services. That's my plug, dexter.allit.services. Hook me up, look it up. And so you introduced me to Tom and Dan, and I had a couple of Zoom meetings with them. Got along with them really well. But I get along well with The Rock, so that doesn't count as much. But they were quite open to having me on board and changing a couple of things in terms of what my role would be. I would bring over all of my clients and they would sit under the All IT banner. They'll continue to receive my support. The good thing is with All IT is that they don't have a Melbourne office. They're in Sydney. They're also in Brisbane. And Melbourne, they'd always used contractors.
Right.
They never had any full-time staff here, their own clients first. So if they needed urgent support, it was lacking. Plus, their Sydney-based staff were getting sick, getting shipped down to Melbourne every so often. I don't know why. Melbourne's a much better place than Sydney, but as it so is, they don't want to do
Actually
that.
there last week on a conference, and I had a fun time. It was a lovely
Yeah, see?
in Melbourne.
Told you.
Loved it.
Told you.
Cool place.
So it was basically a perfect scenario. I'd let my clients know what the deal was. Like, I'll still be looking after them because that was important to me as well. Is I didn't want to engage with a company who would then take me off them and go, okay, you're doing this now, and some random people would look after my ex-clients now.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was just a perfect fit with Tom and the rest of the team. So far, my clients they've welcomed the change. Like, realistically, for them, nothing has changed,
Yeah.
and they're slowly getting used to their system. So far, it's been excellent. One of the big caveats
I'm assuming that you guys have put in a slightly different system for how they log tickets and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah, it's getting there. We're trying to incorporate the MSP way of support versus the break fix. And there are pros and cons for both. I don't care what any MSP says. You will never get better service than with a break fix person, ever. Doesn't matter how big you are, because I can take a call and I can fix it on the spot and I can charge them for it. With an MSP, it has to go through this call logging system and you have to assign this and someone has to call them back. That's just how it is. At the end of the day, you do have the added benefit of a lot more brains around a problem. You have more scope for growth. You have protections. You have all this sort of stuff. But so far, it's been excellent. And one of the things that I was quite adamant on in working with All IT is that I want to do their sales and marketing and business development, and which I found out they don't have anyone, which for me was like, wow, this is going to be so much fun. And Tom, who is an excellent boss, he's forward thinking. He knows the value of how good this is. And only recently, mind you, and again, thanks to you, Darren, for introducing us to, not so much introducing us, but helping us with our podcast journey, giving us a really good kickstart. Tom's stepped away from the business somewhat and started to concentrate more on working on the business. And we're basically seeing the dividends now of it. Is that the right word? Yep. Yeah, we're seeing the positive changes. People are wanting to have a chat with us. We're getting a lot more reach on LinkedIn and other platforms.
Amazing.
And so Tom is really for that. Both of us are really into this content creation phase. Lots of possibilities, and we're running with it. And it was something that I really enjoy doing. Like I said at the start, I do love writing. I do love typing. I've started my own LinkedIn newsletter, and that's getting received really well.
Yep.
And I've always been saying to Tom, like, my dream is to try and basically talk the way that I type, because there's always that disconnect, right?
I was going to be able to do that.
No, AI go fuck itself. Tom and I have great discussions on AI. Look, I like it. I think it's a great concept, and I posted something up on it the other day. But it just means that as a creative person, and you included, everyone's creative at the end of the day, but in order to so much beat AI, you have to be just more creative than that. You know what I mean? And I'm actually looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It just means that it gives me a bit more rope to try something different. And again, I've got to take my hat off to them. They've let me do a lot of stuff. Yeah, I'll say to him, I'm going to do this with my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to do this. I just want to get as many eyes to the business as possible. I don't care whose eyes, but at some point we'll be remembered in some way. We just keep on cranking out content. We get interesting people on board. Yeah. We're not even talking about ourselves, because IT in itself is like a super boring subject. We have to obviously address certain things. We can't just not talk about IT. But for the most part, if we can talk to really interesting people.
Incredible blend of marketing and IT, because the marketing side is coming back now.
Oh, yeah. And IT was creative at one point. But at the end of the day, it's always, when you have a certain problem, there's always the same way to fix it. Yeah. There's no creativity around it. Creativity may come around in trying to find solutions to a problem or trying to improve a process, but it's still not the sort of creativity that can allow you to do some pretty crazy stuff. Yeah. Whereas now, in the marketing point of view or business development, reaching out to people that I wouldn't say they're untouchable, but I'd have no other reason to reach out to them. but now I do. I've got a show. This is what we do. We highlight people.
Exactly.
I can just send them a message and say, look, this is what we do. Do you want to participate? And I think underneath, most people want to tell their story. Whether or not they have the capacity in themselves to do so, I'm not sure. But if you say, hey, let's just have a chat and you tell us your story, how you got to where you are, people are a bit apprehensive in the beginning. But I think once the chat gets going, they can just go on and on.
Absolutely.
So we're taking advantage of that.
That's fantastic. I love it. I'm so happy that you've managed to blend the marketing with the IT, and you've now found a place that is suited for you in terms of what you want to achieve personally.
Yeah.
Now, incredible story, all the things you've done. What would you say to people that might be in a similar position, thinking about what to do? Should I be staying on my own? Should I go back? Should I find an employer? Should I find a partner? Should I outsource?
I listen to so many podcasts. A lot of people say the same thing, and I tend to agree. Money will only get you so far in terms of salary or what you're getting paid. And at some point, and this goes for, I would probably have to say 80%, maybe even higher, 90% of people I know.
Yeah.
There comes a time where it's okay, I'm getting paid X amount. I might get paid an extra 10,000 next year or 20,000. And that might be able to make me buy a new car or do have some home renovations or whatever. But at the same time, it doesn't improve your work life any. You still might be, oh, okay, I'm going into work. This is not what I want to do. It doesn't improve that situation. And usually, if you are bestowed a sizable pay increase, it usually comes with additional work. So you're getting...
the tax department takes their cut.
Oh, of course, exactly. So my advice would be to find your passion first. Find what you genuinely love to do. I've been blessed because I love marketing. I did love marketing when I was doing it, but then I loved IT as well. And then I enjoyed doing IT. Then I found I love dealing with people. Like all of these things just came about and I enjoyed doing it all. But now I've found that passion back for marketing and the creativity and a lot of the fun stuff that goes along with it. If I was more technical and more into, say, the IT side of things, I may have decided to take in a more senior technical role or decided to go down that path. But for me, it wasn't it. So I decided to go with what I truly enjoy doing. So I think for anyone out there, I'm not saying that it's going to be possible for everyone. Like people that are artists that are like a super, super skilled find it quite difficult to do that. Obviously, you can supplement your income in other ways. Eventually, I'd like to think that if people just stick to things that they love to do, there's ways to monetize it. There's kind of ways to monetize everything these days. And it's extremely rare to have a side hustle that can't be monetized. And a lot of the times those side hustle jobs end up becoming the main job after the fact. So
you touched on some really good points. These days, because of technology, because of the internet, a lot of side hustles can really grow and you can take your time to develop them while you're doing something else. And if the time comes about where they take over your revenue, then you can focus on those full time.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many different ways you can do it. It's people are used to this format now. This whole Zoom thing, pre-COVID, it was really Skype. So it was really to deal with overseas customers. You generally wouldn't call up a friend and say, hey, let's have a Skype meeting. It was usually just an overseas thing. And then COVID came along and everyone was forced to use this format. And now COVID's gone, people are still using this format, but they're now using this format to create content, webinars and training courses all online.
Yep.
And it's opened up a whole possibility to so many people to create their own content and make money.
Absolutely. And for you, I suppose the interesting thing is it's now at a point where marketing and IT have merged because marketing in this day and age is so technology driven. And content creation is so techy. It's such a lovely marriage between the psychology of marketing and the tools.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. And I think that's where it muddies the waters a little bit. When, for example, when you had, say, Facebook was the only social media platform or the main one, you could direct efforts at that. And then you had Instagram, and then Google came out with their own thing. And then LinkedIn is now popping back up again. And now you have all of these other channels through technology, and then you chuck in SEO and you chuck in content marketing and you chuck in all of these different things. And now you're like, okay, we only had a couple of things to deal with before, but now we've got this other thing. A prime example of that is I was listening to a marketing podcast the other day and how they were saying how SEO wasn't dead per se, but what they're saying is that people's companies were getting found using AI searches now.
Wow.
It's like a ChatGPT search instead of going into Google and typing in support Sydney all IT services is the best. It's different now. They're using ChatGPT to do that. And are people going to start to use that mechanism to try and promote their business that way?
And that's actually a really good point. Like, how does SEO fit into searchability on AI platforms? Are they linked at all? Or?
I don't believe so. From my very, very rudimentary understanding of AI, it's basically the biggest sets of data imaginable, and being able to utilize that to complete requests that a person puts in. So from it, I think it's a different kettle of fish. I'm not exactly sure, and that's the thing, right? They're talking about AI, how it's data driven.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feed it the wrong data, what's going to happen then? Because there's been times when ChatGPT is just flat out wrong. You'll ask it something and it'll just, with the most confidence, just go, here's the answer. And no, that is absolutely wrong. Where did you get that data from?
That you put in.
Yeah, 100%. So that marriage of technology and marketing has changed. And I think what it also does is it promotes the potential use of traditional marketing methods. I remember cycles where a good example of this is the scam emails of a Nigerian prince has all this money and wants to give it away. I remember in its heyday, it was basically every second spam email was that. And when that started to become a bit more proficient and people were aware of it, I started to get snail mail with that exact mail. It was incredible. I would be getting this letter because no one sends snail mail anymore. So when I got this letter, I'm going, what is this? And I opened it up and it was like, I'm the heir to this fortune. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. So
I get all the Facebook ones. I get the ones.
Oh, do you? Yes.
Please help me. I need this strife. I need so much money. Delete.
It's crazy. And like those people they're like, it's funny how you put those nefarious acts in one side, but if you were to turn it around into a positive skill, they're brilliant marketers.
Sure, like people.
Yeah, like you're talking like drug dealers in terms of running a business. Like they're up there. If they turn their abilities to good, they would make a killer business.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Funny you should say that. I've always not modeled, but I've always been really inspired by watching mafia movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I love just how they build relationships, how they get things done, not in the violent or I just love the interplay of psychology behind how they do things. And I've tried to think, how can I use that when I work, but always in a very legal and moral way.
There's a great content series in that, Darren. There's a great content series in that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's something in it. Like, all these things. You can draw from everything. That's what I think. You really can. You can draw from industries. You can draw from other forms of entertainment. You can draw from art. And it's how we apply that to our day-to-day that can make all the difference.
Yeah. And look, I think I found that out a little myself, and I'm not copying the mafia by any means, but I've had my marketing hat on for a while. And now because I'm focusing on IT, there are some really good sources for IT marketing out there. And I listened to a bunch. I've signed up to a couple of things and I've spoken to some really good people in the game about it. And the one thing I realized is that when you focus a little bit too into one specific industry, it tends to put barriers around your thought process. Whereas if you take a step back and you just look at marketing in general, you can then pick out from all of these different things that generally people have not used in IT and go, you know what, I'm going to try that. Absolutely. I'll see if that works. It might work, it might not, but then we'll see how it goes. And I think that's what happened when I started the VR company. Like I didn't really have my business development hat on, and I'm not formally trained for that stuff, but I just hustled for it. And I probably did things that weren't seen as, I wasn't doing anything illegal, but are you sure you should be emailing that person or calling that guy? It's like, why not?
It wasn't the done thing.
It wasn't the done thing. Exactly.
It can actually work because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's if you did things a certain way. It's what can I do that in IT? Maybe you want to buy 2 computers? Hang on, no, you want to buy 20.
What about how many fish's heads?
Yeah, exactly. It's those sorts of things there where all IT have given me the ability to explore those different forms of marketing. We'll still stick to some of the traditional ones like email marketing and there's LinkedIn, but it's as an industry, IT isn't the most it's not the most exciting, at least in terms of what we do. When I was chatting to somebody the other day, like the best forms of IT marketing really come down to the gaming sector. You buy gaming hardware, keyboard, a mouse, a video card, like the apologies, my dog. The packaging around those boxes,
Yeah.
they're the best. You look at these boxes and you want to buy it because of the box, not about the numbers. It's the postman. Oh, great. In terms of marketing, that's the sexy side of IT marketing. Whereas me selling support to you, hey Darren, I'm going to make this the best IT support you can get. You'll be like, I don't see it.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is that it becomes a prices game.
Yep.
A lot of people just go, how much is it going to cost me? And then that's how it is after that.
Exactly. So what I want to chat about as well, Dex, is obviously you're doing lots of different things. You've still got to keep on top of IT to a degree. How do you find the time to do all that?
The IT stuff is a bit easier now. They've hired another person in Melbourne, Sam, great guy, and he's helping with the IT load, which is good. The other thing as well is in slowly introducing the Melbourne clients into the system, it means that those calls can get logged as part of an MSP tracking system.
Gotcha.
So there's a bit of relief there. And the marketing stuff, it is a passion, 100%. It's one of those things where I'll wake up, I've got quite a rigid morning routine. It's just all automatic these days. And I'll start a newsletter and I'll just type, or I could be in front watching TV and I'll just be typing. It's like I said, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it could be late at night, could be early in the morning. I'll keep on doing that.
Yeah.
And even with Tom, we might record something on the weekend and it's not it's Tom again. It's, hey, do you have time? Let's catch up for 30 minutes and we'll record on this.
Nice.
So that goes back to the passion piece that we were talking about earlier.
I was just about to say that.
If it's something,
it's not even work. You want to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. I'm talking to people and I'm going, oh, okay, I can move this job to the following day because this person can only talk on this day. I'll make that fit.
Mm-hmm.
So it is that there's enough time for a lot of stuff really at the end of the day. And the IT support component does become much easier when there's more people involved. Again, it's just been a really good marriage so far of giving the responsibility of my support to Sam initially and obviously to the much bigger all IT team. And from the marketing point of view, Tom's jumped right in. And I think he was apprehensive at the start, wasn't really sure. I don't think he'd done much of this before. And I had done some of it, but it's always been in a business capacity. So it's not as free-flowing as this. And he did one recording, and then we did another second recording. We did a third recording. And he's never been an analytics guy. But now he's like sending me shots of his impressions of LinkedIn, and it just keeps on going up and up and up. And the good thing is as well is that you don't, when you post something up and it only gets a certain amount of impressions, what you've got to think of is that when you post things up after the fact, generally people will go, if they've not seen your stuff before, they'll go back through the other stuff. And so it might have initially been quite low in the beginning, but as people get introduced to you through another person's network, they'll go, oh, I enjoyed that. I might read something else. I think I started a LinkedIn newsletter maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm still getting people like reading my very first post. Yeah. I'd given it for dead, but obviously someone's come back to it. I'm not sure how LinkedIn's algorithm works, but it's obviously presenting it to some people in some way.
And also because people find you in other parts of your ecosystem, they'll find that content that you posted up a month or two ago. And then you can also reuse a lot of that content, for example, video content or audio content in your newsletters or in your email signatures. Or you're building this whole 3-dimensional holistic web that continues to feed itself.
It does. Yeah. And with Tom really enjoying it now, we had We recorded this morning with a gentleman by the name of Michael Frazee. Great guy, awesome guy. And it was a big interview for Tom. He really respected and respects Michael. And he was great. He was great on the show. And we're going to have him back on. And I think for Tom, that was like, wow, he's a pretty big guy in his world of wanting to talk to people, saying yes, gave an excellent interview, stopped the recording, had an excellent chat after that. And that's going to be a great relationship / friendship early on in.
Absolutely.
And so he's seeing the power of that. And it's like, who else can we ask? Let's see how high we can get. let's keep asking until we get a no. But then if it's not a no now, we'll just interview other people. And then we'll go back to that person and say, hey, how about now? I've interviewed all these other people.
Exactly. You ready?
Yeah.
But mate, it's been amazing to see how you guys have applied this and jumped on the bandwagon. And I'm really amazed and fascinated at how well you've slotted in beautifully and you're really enjoying it. And it's a whole new world for you. But I wanted to also just give you guys a chance to tell us a bit more about All IT and how we can find you.
Oh, okay. All IT, we're a MSP that's primarily based out in Sydney. We have about 30 techs. We also have an office in Orange, I think, in Queensland as well, and Melbourne, Sam and I. We basically do all sorts of MSP stuff. At this point of view, we're growing quite rapidly. And we're doing it through a whole bunch of different channels, obviously doing it through the marketing side of things. We're, at the end of the day, whether it's us or whether it's another MSP, the only thing that's different is really the people. We all use the same software. We use the same platforms. We charge the same as well. And I honestly think that the crowd that we have are some of the best in the business. They're super friendly. It had been the first time since I'd worked with the company and I wasn't sure what to expect because half of these people are younger than me. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to look at me as this old guy and shit. And I slotted along and fit really well. So they're a great bunch of people. They honestly do care about their clients. I've been thrown into leadership meetings for I don't know what reason. I'm just maybe because I'm old. They just put me in there. But it's good. I do learn a lot, and they do actually care for their clients. Technical ability aside, because like I said, all IT guys, they've all got the same level of technical proficiency. We've all got the same software, so don't worry about that. All comes down to relationships. And I honestly believe that Tom and all the account managers in all IT are by far the best. If you want to reach out to me more, cool website is dexter.allit.services. That goes to my link tree, has a whole bunch of stuff there. You can hit me up, you can abuse me, you can send me nasty messages about you talk too much and let Darren talk for a change and all that sort of stuff.
Thanks, mate. But anyway, I'll make sure that I put all those details and links in the show notes.
Thanks, Darren.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, Dex. We've had a lot of fun on this call. I've learned a lot more. Any last words? Anything else that you'd like to leave?
Actually, yes, there is. I truly want to thank you, Darren. You have been an excellent help in getting me to this spot. I couldn't have done it without you. You're one of the most unique IT recruiters that I've found. And I know many, and I know many through my other friends that are also in IT that have found jobs. Tom speaks the world of you. You're entirely different. You're super skilled and talented. In fact, I think your IT gig is probably the least thing you do. I don't know. You do all these podcasts and all these other things.
Yes, I do lots of stuff, but I really appreciate that, mate. That's very nice. Really nice.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for that. So thanks, Darren.
Absolute pleasure. It's easy to work with people like you and Tom and the team. Really make life really easy for me, and it was a pleasure. But mate, thanks for coming on. I'll make sure that we wrap all this up and package it up nicely so everybody can listen. And everybody, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us for our 61st episode. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And we'll see you very soon for our next episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. Thanks again, Dex.
Thanks. See you, Darren.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. If you'd like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@saulrecruitment.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.